Hello and welcome. My name is Evgeny Rusakov and you're watching TVP World, interview from Vilnius. US foreign policy has once again become a source of global turbulence. From Donald Trump's outspoken remarks about Greenland to growing questions about NATO's future, Europe's role, and the very structure of the international order. These signals are forcing both allies and adversaries to reassess the stability of transatlantic ties and the balance of power in the world. To discuss what lies behind this rhetoric, where it may lead, and how the global security landscape is changing, we are joined by Eitvydas Bajarūnas, former ambassador of the Republic of Lithuania to Russia, the United Kingdom and Sweden. Eitvydas, glad to see you in our studio. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you for the invitation.
Let's start with Trump's words regarding Greenland. What's your take on the whole situation in general?
Not very pleasant, I should admit. Because Lithuania, when we regained our independence and we were struggling to join NATO and EU, and then finally we get into both organizations, we were in the world which we assumed would continue, based on very strong rule of law, on moral value system and the institutional setting. And we dispute with those countries which do not adhere to the system. We criticize them, we introduce sometimes sanctions, we have quarrel with these countries. And now we have a situation where one of the major NATO countries started to speak of the same language. So that is what probably was the biggest shock. If the United States would come to NATO or even bilaterally to Denmark and say, look, we got a problem, we need to discuss. We need to see how we should solve this issue. If you, Denmark, you are short of funds and possibilities, which is probably true, because Denmark is not...
Let us just take over.
Let's take this and share the burden.
Do it together.
And the United States committed to have more military presence and so on. I mean, what would be the answer? The answer would be yes, of course. Let's see whether this lies within our existing treaty, or we need to have new treaties to decide. So my point is, there are normal rules how you should deal with this. Sovereignty and territorial belongingness of Greenland is part of the Denmark and Greenland to decide. If we are a bit more now nuanced and skeptical to various offers to purchase. Purchase is doable, especially if you take the history of 18th, 19th century. There were many territorial exchanges. Alaska was acquired, so there are no problems, under one condition. This is based on the will of country which is might be selling these territories, and the will of the people, who they should decide. Greenlanders express very strongly they don't want to be part of US. And so on. So that was the most unpleasant issue.
So how, in your opinion, will the whole situation with Greenland turn out? Best and worst case scenarios.
I can say worst and best, and more or less most realistic in between.
Please do.
I think the best scenario would be as it stands now, even more. United States admit that yes, there are strategic problems in this part of the world. Denmark and NATO, EU probably together also admitting that it's really the problems as I was articulating, the navigation and strategic accessibility of China, Chinese and Russia's interests, and we invest in the more allied NATO-US presence. We invest more in various radars and various navigations systems, and jointly resolve this issue, saying we got a problem and we have a solution to how it. The worst case scenario is that the US will continue to pressure on EU, on Denmark bilaterally, on Greenland with economic and military measures was.
Do you think that could be possible?
I think, of course, everything is possible with Trump. But one thing is clear, that for military maneuvering, Trump needs the Congress to agree. There are plenty of other possibilities U.S. to pressure on allies. Tariffs, which were recently mentioned, and again, various economic sanctions and other pressuring, even blackmailing, as it was once mentioned by international experts, that, for example, U.S. would decide let's say, from tomorrow Greenland belongs to U.S., and pressuring on allies, including Lithuania, with a very simple: do you agree or do you recognize sovereignty of U.S. over the Greenland? If not, we withdraw Article 5 over you. And this is possible. So this is also...
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Absolutely. I believe there will be somewhere in between. This will not calm down. It calmed down now for
the moment,
with this magical solution of Trump and Secretary General of NATO Rutte, with sort of U.S. NATO increasing some presence and so on. But I believe that this is not the end of the story. It will be various spirals. It's like ups and downs with this. So that is unpleasant, but it's possible that this will continue with us for some time.
What do you think of Trump calling himself a dictator and claiming that we sometimes need dictators? Is that okay for a U.S. president to say something like that?
It's okay from the standpoint of view that he's elected by American people and he is accountable not to me and to you. From my human point of view, like personality, I don't like. This is not the type of joke you usually use as a world leader, as a leader of a democratic country, because it sends very strange, even if it's a joke, which of course it was a joke, hopefully. It sends very strange signal that the president of a democratic country can discuss this issue, can call themselves and can parallel this. This is not very pleasant. So again, up to American people, up to President Trump. He is sovereign to do what but it's not very helpful.
Okay, let's move on. So what do you think of Trump's intention to reduce US responsibility for security in Europe? And how does this, together with his words about Greenland, affect NATO?
Again, we joined NATO 2004, and that was Lithuania's decade struggle after regaining independence, to get into the international organizations, mainly EU, NATO, and we assumed that the world will not change from the time we entered to NATO, including with the American presence, American commitment to Europe. So, and we're here in the situation where it might end very quickly, and it might end in very dramatic way that all American soldiers will be withdrawn from Europe. Again, let's now calm down and see many aspects. One aspect is let's start from American angle. American angle is very clear, and that was articulated in America's new national security strategy of the end of the last year, and recently, not least like last Friday, was published as part of the new defense strategy, which articulating very clear: Russia is not major enemy. Russia is challenge. Russia is regional power, and thus America's interest lies in Indo-Pacific. Is it new? Not. It started even earlier, not least from Obama's period. Obama was already articulating pivot to Asia, meaning American strategic shift towards Asia, because all the problems and tensions and even economic interest lies in this part of the world. Here, I have no quarrel with Americans. It's fine. It's up to Americans to decide where their interest lies and how they treat Russia. I might admit partially that Russia is not up to America to match. It's not part of Soviet Union, not parallel to Soviet Union. But again, knowing Putin's intention, knowing Putin's desire to continue to challenge the West, and knowing Putin's desire not to stop with the war in Ukraine and continue in advancing towards Europe, I would not say this is regional power. It's still major world power where we need to have parallel balancing forces.
Even though a weaker now, but still.
Much weaker, of course, but still very aggressive, and not least nuclear. And this is where the part of the problem lies, nuclear power. So this is one part of the story. Another part of the story is Europe. After World War II, with Europe under ruins after this long Nazi and Western clash and liberation of Europe, Europe was flattened, ruined houses and economy. And U.S. came to the very brave and very wise solution: we will not withdraw. We will be with you, because World War I and World War II have shown that Europe is still too much important for U.S. and we should not withdraw. So Americans remain in Europe with the forces, with the strategic defense, but also with the economic support, Marshall Plan. What was the American view? Europeans, we will take care of defense. Okay, you need to have your armies. Let's create an organization, meaning NATO. We should defend ourselves together, but we will provide majority of the defense. And you Europeans, you should continue advancing with your economies, social, economic solution, all social economic problems. The problem was that this notion continued after Cold War, end of Cold War, which probably was, I think, is not, I want to say, a strategic mistake, but a bit of misunderstanding of the world. Americans and Europeans said, okay, let's continue in the same. We will provide you support, and then you as a European Union, you continue to develop, admitting new countries. And we end up in the situation where appetite for majority of European countries to invest into defense shrink dramatically. And here American pivot to Asia, and the signals of Obama was a bit of not probably very clear heard by us Europeans, that we will withdraw one day. And suddenly we are now in the situation where we have American presidents who think America first, who think Asia and China is my major interest and challenges, and I will withdraw. When? Tomorrow, not today. And this is the problem for Europeans. If Americans would say to us in organized and civilized way, Europeans, this is our timeline, let's say 10 years. American forces now, and they're shrinking, and from which areas? Okay, Americans should be part of this nuclear umbrella, because there are no other way. Okay, so if Americans will present us with a plan, and we Europeans would agree, and then we will continue. Now Europe is under this strategic gap where Americans are withdrawing, and the European forces not up to level. And this is not very helpful. And this is why that is why it's not very good.
According to international politics expert Robert Keegan, Donald Trump is destroying the old world and taking it back to the 19th century. By bringing back the multipolarity, which may be very dangerous for both USA and the whole world. So what's your take on that? Is Vladimir Putin's dream coming true? Briefly.
First of all, there was a need to reshuffle international politics. We will love to continue with this so-called Bretton Woods system with the UN and other organizations, NATO, EU in Europe. But the problem was that we saw that the international system was not up to the level to solve current problems. But what Trump is doing, he is not reforming, he's not trying to reform the system, which again, they have many, I can enumerate many deficiencies, but he wants to destroy it. And this is again the problem. When you're destroying something, and you're not building new one, so there is a strategic gap. But the problem is now with this tension with Russia, with China, and very much becoming more and more aggressive, we will be in the situation where a new world system will be destroyed, hopefully not, and the new would be not created. This is what I believe the current challenges lies.
Let's hope that we are able to solve all our challenges. Eitvydas, thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for joining us today, sir. And I really hope to see you once again in our studio. We've really got big topics to discuss.
Ačiū.
And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was Eitvydas Bajarūnas, former ambassador of the Republic of Lithuania to Russia, the United Kingdom and Sweden. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.